Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Rest. In this video, I'm going to be ranking all of the Atlas Legendary weapons of Borderlands 3. Due to popular demand, you guys requested that you want to see more of these. You actually really enjoyed the first one where I did all the Jacob's weapons. You also told me some ways I can improve upon this. So as you see, I actually do have all the weapons now bigger and clear so you guys can see which ones I'm talking about instead of the way I had before. And everything that I talk about and what you see, all the credits will be linked in the description below, and there's even credits on the website. So from the pictures I use or just when I go over some of the weapons, everything is linked down there below for you guys. Be sure to go show both of them some support. Now you can also see that I have changed the F tier to haven't used much because there was some confusion when I was talking about it, where I put 3 weapons in F tier. I was talking about I didn't really use them and it was kind of alone down there, so I did change that so there's no confusion. If one of your favorite gun does go down there, it shouldn't for the Atlas weapons, but you know, a category where there's a lot more weapons, if something goes down there, I don't want people to be confused. And once again, these are my opinions. I'm sure you can probably make a weapon work and do something very well, almost like I said in the other video. Like I said, you can pretty much make any gun almost S tier if you have the right build, but this is just based on the gun specifically with no specific builds going for it. And I'm also including things like nostalgia or just quests to get them on where I'm ranking it in this chart. Now, it's not only about how good a gun performs. If the gun is super hard to get, it's probably not going to rank that high, as if you can just get a gun that is really easy to get and it performs slightly less than the one that's super hard to get. You're probably going to use the one that's very easy to get because you can farm for it and you can get a god roll. And with all that being said, let's get right into this tier list. Now starting off, we have the Atlas replay. This is a weapon that came from the brand new DLC 6, or the one that brought the raid boss. This is a Atlas pistol that shoots out rockets, and it has a lot of like tracking capabilities. You're going to shoot out these tracker darts that track enemies. Then the more you have tracked on them is going to increase the fire rate of this thing. This pistol is actually really good. It's probably one of the better Atlas weapons in the game, and if you have a splash damage build going for it, this thing can absolutely shred. Now this gun also isn't too hard to get, so I'm honestly gonna rank this in the A tier. It could go to S tier possibly if you had a right build going for it, but I think A tier is a pretty nice spot for it. It's a very good weapon. It's nothing over the top crazy good that should go to S tier, but I will say it definitely deserves the A tier spot. And if you haven't tried it out, I definitely would, because it's a lot of fun. Now, next up, we have the carrier. The carrier is an interesting weapon. It's kind of looked down upon since we do have something like the OPQ right here, but the carrier is actually pretty good as well. You can make it work in some builds, and you know, it's not like the greatest thing in the game, but it is actually pretty decent. I don't know if I would rank it A tier with the Atlas replay. I could see the argument for that, but I'm going to put it in B tier just to have a nice safe spot. It's not bad, don't get me wrong. Like, putting it in B tier does not mean the gun is bad. If you have, like I said, a build going for this thing is insanely good. Even by itself, it can still perform pretty well. But if you don't know what it does, just when you shoot, it's going to bring out all these other bullets that essentially go and hit people, which is really cool. It's a cool legendary effect. So I think B tier is a nice spot for that. But then we have the Freeman. The Freeman is a pretty cool one, honestly. It's not the greatest, but it does have a cool effect. Essentially, when you shoot the rocket, you can just track it around like if you were just drawing something with a pencil. It's really cool, but it's really not that effective whatsoever, and that's a trend with a lot of these Atlas rocket launchers. But you know, I will put it in the C tier. This, when the game first launched, it was actually in one of the original trailers, and it got everybody excited. It's like, oh, you can track the rocket, like it just simply draw it on the screen, which is really cool. It's really fun legendary effect, but it just doesn't perform like it should. Honestly, for damage wise, it might could even go down lower, but I will keep it in C due to nostalgia from the trailer, and everybody was excited for it. And I'm sure if you do have a splash damage build, you probably can get this working for you a little bit, but it, you know, by itself on most characters, it's not the greatest. Then we have the Link. The Link is another interesting one. This used to not be able to get anoints, so before it was like straight D tier, but now that it can get anoints in one of the hot fixes that came out recently, it actually is pretty good. I honestly would rank it A tier with the Atlas replay. If you don't know what it does, it simply just shoots really fast, and that's pretty much the legendary effect of it, but it can shred things. If you do have a build going for it, it will absolutely tear through enemies, and even if you don't, it still is a pretty good weapon to use. I think putting it side by side with the Atlas replay is nice. It's kind of the same weapon, except the Atlas replay does splash damage, shoots a little slower, but this one just shoots really fast and does normal damage, and both of them shred really well. And I think both of them in A tier is actually a very good spot. Now we have the multi-tap. The multi-tap is another Atlas pistol. The legendary effect of this is when you reload the gun, you're going to shoot out some darts towards the enemies that you were shooting at. So there's pretty much no downtime with this weapon. Obviously, with most weapons, when you reload the gun, that is the downtime of the weapon where you can't do damage. With this gun, is now going to allow you to do damage constantly, 100% uptime, because even when you reload, you're doing damage, and those rockets actually do a good bit of damage. A lot of people actually really like the multi-tap. When it came out, it wasn't the greatest, so to speak, but it has grown on a lot of people, and I will put it in the A tier. If you want to put it in B tier, I do see the argument for that, but I think having A tier up here with the other pistols is a pretty good spot, because they're all really good pistols that kind of do their own unique thing. Like I said, this one does splash, this one does normal, shoots really fast, and then this one has a cool reload mechanic, and the gun also already does a good bit of damage by itself, but then you add that reload mechanic to it, and it's definitely deserves the A tier spot. Next up, we have the OPQ system, the gun that's coming back soon, later in the end of this month, and everybody is excited for it, and rightfully so, because this gun is going to get none other than the S tier. If you don't know what this does, it is just a workhorse of a weapon. It is super good. It is an assault rifle that does a ton of base damage on its own, and the legendary effect of this gun is you can shoot out a copy of the weapon, and you basically have a doppelganger of the weapon shooting with you, so you have two guns shooting at the same time. And that's not even where it ends. Also, every time you shoot an enemy, you have a chance to practice explosive shock damage on the enemy, and you're just obviously going to do splash damage. So if you have a splash damage build going forward, you can make that thing go insane. But even if you don't, this is just one of the best assault rifles in the game. It is super good. It's super fun to use, and it is super versatile. Like, you can run this in almost any single build you go for. You can honestly not have a single skill point, and this thing will still slap enemies. It is just that good, and it definitely deserves the S tier spot. The only problem is that it only comes around with the cartel event, and that's the only way you can get it. And honestly, you might move it down to A, being the fact that it is kind of hard to get. But if you are playing when the cartel event comes around, which remember, it does come out at the end of this month, like I said earlier, definitely be sure to hop on and get this thing, because it is a gun that you need to have in your arsenal. The next up, we have the Plumage. This is an Atlas rocket launcher. The way these work, these specifically, they simply just shoot out rockets at a really random pattern. They really can't do much damage, but it does have tracker grenades, so you want to track the enemy, then shoot the rockets so they all go on the one enemy that you've tracked. The problem is with most of these rocket launchers, they don't do a lot of damage compared to some other rockets in the game. But the legendary effect of this is if the rocket kills an enemy, it's going to shoot out more little grenades that track enemies and do a decent amount of damage, but it's not the greatest. And honestly, you could probably rate this in the D tier, maybe C tier if you really enjoy Atlas rocket launchers, but I'm not really sure who does. But if you're that person, be sure to let me know in the comments. But yeah, honestly, for me, D tier. I might even put in haven't used much, because I really haven't used it much, but from the times I have used it, I can go on and tell you that it's just not that good, and also just using other Atlas rockets in general. But I think D tier is probably going to be its best spot. Now, next up, we have the Rebel Yell. This is an assault rifle that shoots out tracker bullets, and those tracker bullets also do shock damage when they hit an enemy. It doesn't do a crazy amount of shock damage, but the base gun itself is okay. It's obviously nothing compared to the OPQ, but it does shoot very fast, and it can consume a lot of ammo due to that reason. But it, like I said, it's okay. Like, it's not the greatest. But be honest with me, when's the last time you've used the Rebel Yell of all weapons? You can honestly put this in D tier, or I might put it in C tier, because it is usable. I think it is more usable than something like the Plumage, but it's not by it like that much. So, you know, again, D or C tier. I'm gonna keep it in C tier, I guess, to be nice to it, but it's definitely not the greatest weapon at all. And next up, we have the Res, or the RES, whatever you want to call it. But this is an interesting weapon, because obviously most weapons in the game, you want to do damage with the weapon, but this one, it doesn't really do damage at all. It's literally made to just res people. So when you shoot a teammate with this, you're actually going to revive them, which is a very good utility if they do go down. But honestly, it's very easy in Borderlands 3 just to get back up and fight for your life. Like, it's not that big of a deal to have to carry a weapon just for that. But to be fair, in most builds, you only really use 2 to 3 weapons at most, and you can have this one as just your backup slot if you are playing with somebody and they do go down, they can't get up. I honestly have not used it much, because I'm normally mainly just a solo player, but I can see if you are playing co-op where this could be useful, and it could be like I said, like a nice fun weapon to have in your inventory just to swap off to it. But for that reason, I'm going to keep it and haven't used much, since again, we don't have anything down here. This theoretically could be S tier if you have a teammate that keeps going down a lot. It would obviously be very good for that. Or, you know, it could be B tier if you have just a normal player that goes down a lot, or if you have 2 god tier players that never go down, then it's absolutely going to be at the bottom of the barrel. D tier, it's just weird because you can't really rank it. It's just based on if you play co-op or solo, and on top of that, if your co-op player, you know, has a very good build and doesn't go down much, or if they're just starting their playthrough and they go down a lot. So I'm gonna keep it haven't used much. You can kind of rate it wherever you want to rate it. But then lastly, we have the Ruby's Wrath, which is another interesting weapon. Based on damage alone, it's absolutely a D tier. Like, it may be C, but definitely D. Like I'm telling you, personally, I just do not like Atlas rocket launchers, and they don't really perform that well at all. But the Ruby's Wrath is actually pretty interesting because if you get a low level one of this, you can actually rocket jump with it, which, if you don't know, this is essentially just shooting the ground and getting a bunch of movement that you can get high up in the air, which is really cool. But you never really are going to use it too much, and that's really the only reason. It's nothing like rocket jumping was in Borderlands 2, but it is a thing, and if that makes you want to move it up a little bit more, I can understand. But honestly, I'm just going to keep it in D tier with the other Atlas rockets because they're just not that good. But that is going to be the ranking for the Atlas weapons. I know this was a shorter video, but I wanted to give an updated visual on what the images are going to look like. And also, you know, I've changed the F tier to haven't used much. Let me know what you guys think about this list in the comments, if you would change anything. Also, again, if you want to make your own, I will have this linked in the description. If you want to send it to me on Twitter, my handle is right here at RestAssured TV. You can send it over there, or if you just want to type it in the comments below, I can read it there as well. Next up, I probably will be doing Molly, Juan, and Doll. That is the most I saw in my previous video, but again, in this one, you can let me know what you guys want to see next. But I am having a blast making these videos, so if you do enjoy, consider subscribing. I'm on the road to 10K. I'm so close to it at this point. We are right around the corner, and I cannot wait to hit it. I truly thank you guys so much for all the support. It has been a journey getting to here, and I love each and every single one of you for it. But that's going to do it all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.